WFYI podcasts are brought to you by Visit Bloomington. With over 350 restaurants to choose from, Bloomington, Indiana is truly a food lover's paradise. Go to visitbloomington.com to discover what suits your taste.
This is WFYI News Now. It's February 7th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, a bill that would reduce protections for the state's wetlands is headed to Governor Holcomb's desk. The lieutenant governor joins others in calling the FSSA to pause proposed cuts. And a local cultural tour offers something different for NBA All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis.
But also when people come and visit, we can tell them about ourselves, tell them about our city, tell them who we are, and what roles we played to contributing to the history that's happened all across the world.
Those stories coming up. But first, Indianapolis has hired the first of 3 attorneys whose jobs will be to prosecute more people on the federal level for violent crimes. Nate Walter is named Marion County's first Special Assistant United States Attorney. The positions were created last year to investigate and prosecute violent crimes in Indianapolis through the U.S. Attorney's Office. Last year, the Indianapolis City County Council unanimously approved $225,000 to fund the move. The partnership is part of the city's violence reduction strategy. Federal crimes often carry higher penalties, and defendants can be denied bail. And some news out of the ongoing legislative session. A controversial bill that would reduce protections for the state's wetlands is headed to Governor Eric Holcomb's desk. It's called a compromise, but the history of Indiana's wetlands law, as well as testimony from wetlands experts and advocates, suggest it's anything but. Rebecca Thiel reports the bill would lower the number of wetlands that could fall into Class 3, the only class that didn't lose significant protections when the state changed its wetlands law in 2021.
That change also created a wetlands task force to find balance between advocates, regulators, and developers. But the member representing home builders didn't show up to the meetings. Now, 2 years later, the State Department of Environmental Management and developers say they've struck a compromise in this latest bill. Yet wetland advocates and experts say they weren't consulted. Republican Senator Sue Glick applauded IDEM's work to bring clarity to developers in light of a U.S. Supreme Court decision. Still, she didn't vote for the bill.
I think it has some serious shortcomings which might have been resolved had everyone been a part of the discussions.
After about 3 years of debate, it's unclear when Indiana will reach a true compromise with all stakeholders at the table. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Rebecca Thiel.
The Family and Social Services Administration proposed cuts to a program that supports care for children with disabilities in response to the $1 billion shortfall. Abigail Ruman reports the lieutenant governor and families of medically complex children are calling for the FSSA to pause the implementation of the cuts.
Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch has publicly called for FSSA to pause the proposed cuts for the second time and added a call for an independent outside audit of the agency. Melanie Kinzerski's daughter has a rare form of epilepsy that can be difficult to provide care for. Kinzerski says the cuts to attendant care would take away the resources to provide adequate care for her daughter.
It's discriminatory against disabled people because they're removing the services that will allow my child to stay part of this community. I will not allow her to be segregated by budgetary mistakes.
Crouch is also calling for legislators to step in if the governor's office and FSSA don't fix the problem. Republican leaders say the attendant care issue doesn't require legislation this session and will be resolved through the agency's normal rulemaking process. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Abigail Ruman.
And for our final story today, the NBA All-Star Game comes to Indianapolis soon. A series of arts and cultural events are planned for visitors and residents, including the return of Through Two Eyes cultural tour with a nod to basketball. I sat down recently with Indianapolis native Samson Livingston to learn about his walk and talk tours for All-Star Weekend. Why did you start doing these tours around Indianapolis?
I felt like it was very important for us in Indianapolis to understand who we are as a city, and not just for us to have this internal understanding, but also when people come and visit, we can tell them about ourselves, tell them about our city, tell them who we are, and what roles we played to contributing to the history that's happened all across the world.
And so what are some of the places and topics you plan on covering during the walk and talk on All-Star Weekend?
But yeah, so All-Star Weekend, I'm always, and if you've been on one of my tours, you know there's a heightened focus on Black history and African-American contributions and significance, not only in Indianapolis, but worldwide. But I want to really talk about why Indianapolis is the perfect place to host the NBA All-Star Game. So we'll look at the transformation of our downtown and what a cool tool we'll have at Circle Center Mall to kind of frame how downtown Indianapolis has changed and evolved. You can do that with just the mall. So we'll be using that area. We'll be using Washington Street. And then as the city activates with the basketball art and the basketball storytelling and displays, we'll incorporate that to everything that we're doing.
What are some of the differences people can expect during this walk and talk compared to like Butter?
Okay, sweet. So it'll be a little bit longer than the Butter walks. Those are quick. It's hot. We're moving. And a little bit shorter than like a traditional 1 hour walk and talk. But I think what they can expect is a true blend of arts, sports, and history, and I'm going to use the city as my canvas to do that. Just as the NBA is going to use Indianapolis as their canvas to host the All-Star Game, I'm going to use the city as my canvas to host the walk and talks. And so I'm going to try to showcase us as a city as best as I can, but also I want to create a sense of pride for us here in Indianapolis that we're excited about why we're hosting this All-Star Game. I'm just really excited for people to like feel this energy. I was just walking the route today. Like I came from a route walk, so I think it's ready to go.
Oh, that's exciting.
It is. The information keeps going. History happens every single day. History's happening right now. And so I'll never run out of stuff to talk about or do. And so even if you don't catch a walk and talk in January, best believe there's going to be walk and talks in February, March, April. It keeps going because this history is too important to ignore. And it happens so fast, and there's so much to learn from it, that it's too important to not address it. And so, yeah, you can go on a walk and talk anytime you want to.
Even in the cold.
Even in the cold, but that's why we'll heat back up. I like to say it's like a baseball season. But, once it starts to get warm, they start going out there. They start throwing. They start warming up. And I'm kind of that way with the walk and talks where it's like, as we start to thaw out, you'll see me out there more and more. But don't think I haven't been practicing or rolling or going throughout the winter as well.
Why is it important to highlight local history?
I think it's most important to highlight local history because we often hear about history on this global scale. It doesn't feel like you can be a history maker or you can be someone who contributes to history. But when you hear about local history, you realize how the people in your neighborhood, the people in your family have contributed to making history. And so you take pride in the people who are from the areas you are, and you realize that you have the potential to create an impact that lasts for decades and decades.
And what do you hope people take away after the All-Star Walk and Talk?
I hope they take away that Indianapolis is a city that's trying. To want to host these events, you gotta believe in yourself as a city. To want your city to be on the world stage, essentially, it's the NBA All-Star Game. A lot of people, they don't want that. A lot of individuals don't want that. A lot of organizations don't want all eyes on them. That's the last thing they want. But in Indianapolis, we're saying, look at us. See us. See what we have and see who we are. And so I want people to take away who we are, what we have, and know that they can bring what they have and they value to Indianapolis, and they can take what we have and we value back to their city. And let's go play some ball, baby. Like, let's go. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. Thank you so much, Samson.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by the following people who live in your community: Darian Benson, Drew Dodlin, Kendall Antron, who composed the music for this podcast, and me, Abriana Herron. Our news director is Sarah Neal Estes. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.